Right, let's get into the show. Much to cover again. And how much of our life is dictated through social media came to the fore this week. And go ogle searches and algorithms and all the other bullshittery. But I did a search of on 4 people doing parody songs against the COVID scam, only to find there are none at the top of the Go Ogle algorithm charts. Only so-called celebs and other pre-selected jackasses doing the COVID test and techno jab promotional songs. Funny that, isn't it? Well, actually it's not, because all celebrities are vacuous cretins and attention-seeking whores, and the sooner people realise that, the better we will all be. And what this also proves is they're on a massive PR push, never seen on this scale. And again, that is a massive plus for us, as we are forcing them to work harder to keep their bullshit going. Ultimately, it will fail, as too many now are just not buying it. And then we have the latest jackassery from Farcebook. Is called Admin Assist. Ooh. Use Admin Assist to easily manage your group. Automatically perform certain tasks based on requirements you control. Yeah, right. This includes sharing feedback with members, managing posts based on keywords, and more. Well, we don't need your admin assist. I'm quite happy with the ones we've got. And your admin assist is about as useful as fiction checkers. Unless, of course, your admin assist deletes the fiction checkers automatically. But then we do that anyway by posting the truth. We're off to India first. And this was sent in to me of life that's going on in India. Is this a test case? Is the question to be answered. And it's called Genocide, Starvation and Corruption, which can apply in many other countries. And this is the truth about what's really going on in India under the guise of the COVID-19 virus and the alleged pandemic. These are not my words. These are the words for someone living in India who reached out to me to get her message out about the genocide that is taking place right now, all under the guise of strains and variants of COVID-19. People are dying of starvation and a lack of medical care, and she's witnessing and experiencing at first hand the horrors of what is happening. And here is her message. And she said, I'm writing to you about the genocide that is taking place in India, and millions have already died of starvation during the ongoing lockdowns. The government and media are lying and making it look like the virus. Although a national lockdown hasn't been imposed this year, many states are in either total lockdown or under strict restrictions. Most cities, including Pune, where I live, have been under total lockdown for weeks now. Restaurants, shops, gyms, theatres, basically everything is shut, and the cities are ghost towns. Even so-called essential businesses are only open till 11 a.m. in the morning. And you basically have just an hour to buy food, and then your time is up. Interstate travel and even inter-district travel is banned. The cops wait at all the major crossroads to question why you are travelling outdoors or to fine you if you are not wearing a mask. The medical community here is also complicit in genocide, lying about hospitals being full and turning away people with genuine illnesses who need immediate care. They have even created a shortage of oxygen cylinders. The government has created a shortage of oxygen supply. Hospitals are turning people with genuine conditions away, claiming that there are no empty beds. All patients undergoing any operation or procedure have to first undergo the RT-PCR test, or they are refused treatment. I experienced this firsthand. Since last year, there has been a government order that you cannot undergo any medical procedure unless you get the PCR test done. Unfortunately, I had to undergo a procedure last year. I did not have time to use common law or any other tactic as I was in a lot of pain. In the end, I had no choice but to be basically skull raped. Even in the operating room, they taped the mask to my face because I kept pulling it down. But my plight is nothing compared to that of the poor millions who have already died of starvation. The people hit hardest are the migrant workers and those in the rural areas. Most businesses employ migrant workers, and with everything shut, there are no jobs, no income, and no food. As a result, millions are now dying of starvation or malnutrition. This is due, we covered this maybe this year, maybe last year. Time seemed to disappear these days. Maybe it has. This is due to the Israeli-based farming regulations being imposed on the country, and why millions have protested against it in India, and it's something that we did highlight. So with millions protesting their farming rights, less food was produced, and now the outcome that they wanted is unfolding. It is the classic reverse psychology program. And the person said, please use your platform to highlight the crimes against humanity that has taken place in this country, and the world needs to be aware of the seriousness of the situation here. And please do not forget your brothers and sisters here in India. Now, this show has highlighted India many times. In fact, we've highlighted many countries of several varying issues. But some may see the next line as inappropriate, but it's not. It is central to issues in countries like India. The religious, and in their case, spiritual elements that far from enlighten the Indian populace, they actually degrade it. And the story of India last week, of the elites all fleeing instead of buying oxygen machines. And it's time for India to name and shame all of those who left and cut off their oxygen, which is money and business. Now, people may say, but we'll have no jobs, and I agree. But that was what they were planning anyway. I warned of it in the Clowns in Panic show 2 years ago, and several pieces before that. The clue is you have to look after yourselves. Don't sell your goods to those clowns. Feed yourselves. But the great question for the rest of the world, given India was the first country mass vaccinated, is India the canary in the coal mine? Because if it is, in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we should see the same effects in America. And perhaps the vaccine is what is responsible for the increased sickness, as I warned of in the early expose shows. A few years ago, I warned of the dangers to Australia and New Zealand of being caught in a war of the fake superpower countries, America backed by the Five Eyes Alliance and China. Now they are all backed into a corner, as I predicted, and playing out in the public arena. And four of the members have jointly condemned China's treatment of its Uyghur population in Xinjiang province. And they've also expressed concerns over China's de facto military takeover of the South China Sea, ignoring the fact that it's called the South China Sea for a reason. Ignoring the fact of why do we have to portion everything off into land and sea grabs by the not dominant countries, but the elite-funded countries. So why do I say that? Because all dominant countries have been backed and supported by the elites and the control system. As an example, Israel are not a dominant country, yet wield so much power as they've been funded by the elites. They also complained its suppression of democracy in Hong Kong and its threatening moves towards Taiwan, which China has vowed to take back by 2049. Oh, the irony of the Australian and New Zealand land grabs from the indigenous people. All of it done by the Rothschilds, I might add, and their Jewish slave ships via the East and West Indies companies. But one country, though, has opted out of confronting China, New Zealand. And this was revealed in the short series called The Pine Gap, which was essentially a documentary series. It's only 6 episodes. Perhaps it revealed too much. And the Five Eyes Alliance, that also includes Canada and the mother country of them all, the UK, provides military support, safety and security for the 2 Down Under countries. But whilst the Five Eyes focused all of their attention on the Middle East, Iran, North Korea and Russia, China did deals on food and other strategic deals, and now have Australia and New Zealand over a barrel. If you don't support China, and what are now vital trade deals to both countries will suffer, and both will face financial economic ruin and a shortage of goods. But what became clear in that documentary is none of the other countries care too much for the belligerent recklessness and stupidity of the Americans' role in all of this. And having observed more closer hand since being in this country, I can see why. The goons at the top don't have a clue. All too content in boosting the coffers of the pre-selected war lobby companies, all attached to several rogue-ran agencies that run not only counter to world peace, but peace within their own country as well. And the key to this, and to all countries' peace and well-being going forward, is to withdraw from all trade deals, whilst making your own countries self-sufficient. Ensure future trade deals do not have strategic or other damaging conditions attached to them, like the Paris Climate Agreement. And the deal is a simple trade deal between 2 countries and not conducive to support wars, regimes, or land grabs. Israel. There was a massive stampede this week at a densely packed, so much for social distancing, Jewish pilgrimage site that killed at least 45 people in northern Israel on Friday, with rescue workers facing chaotic crowds while trying to evacuate the injured, of which there was over 100. Now, the disaster occurred in Meron, at the site of the reputed tomb of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who was a 2nd century Talmudic sage, where mainly ultra-Orthodox Jews flock to mark the Lag BaOmer holiday. And it was called the Bonfire Festival, and so it's a public sacrifice. Now, the pilgrimage was the largest public gathering since the pandemic began, with reports that there were 3 times more people there than authorized. An initial report indicated that the carnage began when a section of stadium seating collapsed, but rescue workers later linked the casualties to a stampede. And a spokesman for the Magen David Adom Israel Rescue Service told the APF that there were 38 dead at the time. It's now 45, but there were more at the hospital. And a source at the Northern Ziv Hospital, one of several receiving casualties, said that it had recorded at least 6 deaths. So what is the Lag BaOmer? Well, the earliest clear reference to the observance of Lag BaOmer is a brief statement by Isaac ben Dorbolo in the 12th century in France. And it is found in his annotations to Mazor Vitri, and he points out that Purim and Lag BaOmer always fall on the same day of the week, like a loop then. But he actually says nothing about the origin of the holiday. It's funny now, isn't it? A bit like Easter. Had nothing to do with Jesus and the 3 days, and everything to do with the pagan worship of Ostara. So Lag BaOmer is Hebrew for the 33rd day in the Omer. Sounds all very Masonic, that to me. And the Talmudist Menachem Mirei, in his gloss to Yevamot 62b, cites the Talmudic passage which states that during the time of Rabbi Akiva, 24,000 of his students died from a divinely sent plague during the counting of the Omer. 24,000. A divinely sent plague. Oh my. What is so divine about killing 24,000 students? I guess it was the fiery serpent's time again. And the Talmud goes on to say that this was because they did not show proper respect to one another. Really? And this is the God they all revere and worship? Seriously, at which point does common sense kick in? Lag BaOmer is a sacrifice day, like all other so-called holy days. Now, Mary named Lag BaOmer as the day when, according to a tradition of the Geonim, the plague ended. And beginning in 2004, the Israeli government designated Lag BaOmer as the day for saluting the IDF reserves, signifying violence is to be celebrated. All very fitting. But the fact that it is a fire ritual, which just happens to coincide with the sacrifice by fire period of April 19th through May 1st, which is Beltane Day, should not be lost on people. And the Jewish people have no idea what they are taking part in. Back to America, the FBI has carried out searches at the home and office of Rudy Giuliani, who was Donald Trump's personal lawyer. No idea why. Perhaps we do now. And the raid is part of a probe into Mr. Giuliani's dealings with Ukraine. Well, I never. And his lawyer says he denies breaking the law. But before the 2020 election, Mr. Giuliani led an effort to find incriminating information about the Democratic candidate Joe Biden and his son Hunter in Ukraine. An effort to find. It's everywhere for all to see. Why did you have to make an effort? They should look themselves and quit waiting for the distorted and corrupt media to decide for them. Now, of course, the latex man won the election, and he and his son have denied any wrongdoing. Now, several electronic devices belonging to Giuliani was seized, and the warrants included an allegation that Giuliani failed to register as a foreign agent. Now, the Foreign Agents Registration Act requires people to notify the State Department if they are acting as a foreign agent on behalf of another nation. Well, given 90% of Congress act on behalf of another nation consistently, have they all registered as well? Oh, common sense again. Oh dear. What about AIPAC and J Street? Are they registered as foreign agents? What about the CIA and the GCHQ puppets, the NSA? Are they registered as foreign agents? None of them are acting on behalf of America or Americans, are they? Well, Mr. Giuliani's lawyer, Robert Costello, maybe it was Abbott and Costello, called the searches legal thuggery and said this is totally unnecessary, adding that the search was conducted to make him look like he's some sort of criminal. He is. Try 9/11. And he added that raids stem from an alleged incident of failure to register as a foreign agent, and Mr. Giuliani has previously called the investigation pure political persecution. But if people think this is in any part of an investigation, they are deluded. It is all about a cover-up of the Bidens. And what this reveals is further evidence of the FBI, CIA, and other agencies are being controlled by Democrat groups. Now, in the future, all politicians should only be allowed to be involved in their own country's dealings and businesses. This then cuts out the potential corruption, subversion of other countries' assets, and reduces the blackmailing culture that's all too rife within that establishment. UK next. UK citizens are being prepared for a great British summer. Yeah, right. Summer in Britain. Well, I never. Every bank holiday it rains, and they say weather manipulation doesn't happen. And they're saying they're going to have a great British summer due to the progress of the UK's vaccination programme. However, quietly published government contracts reveal the promised roadmap out of a lockdown could in fact be a red herring. And on April 26, the UK government published a tender in search of 60 new COVID marshals in the district of Hertfordshire, which is all very Masonic. Really Masonic. And the contract offered to public security, law and order, and compulsory social security service providers is set to run from July this year to January 2022 and a cost of $3 million. Now, marshals were introduced in October 2020 to help businesses manage queues, really. Ensure adherence with social distancing measures, remind people to wear face coverings where necessary, and regularly clean frequently touched surfaces. Gestapo then. And as Britain's state broadcaster has acknowledged, though, they don't actually have any legal mandate to enforce rules. None. But with millions of Milgram experiment people, that doesn't seem to matter or apply. The people give them the legal mandate, as according to them, we must all follow the authority. Yeah, right. Now, officials merely hoped they'd make life at least slightly easier, for those authorities such as police actually invested with such powers. In the UK, we used to call these people jobsworths. Give them a little power and it all goes to their heads like mini Hitlers. But marshals are for what? Imposing martial law. And according to the new tender, these individuals are expected using an intelligence-led approach, so they're unqualified then, to provide practical support to aid and encourage compliance. There's that word again. Help introduce measures to aid public and business awareness and understanding of regulations and guidance, and disseminate COVID-19 guidance, including where additional local restrictions are in place. Now, while the job description sounds like something to expect in the COVID era, the timing may raise quite a few eyebrows, as according to the Whitehall's official roadmap, due to the success of London's national vaccination programme, no earlier than the 21st of June, the government hopes to be in a position to remove all legal limits on social contact. The 21st of June. So in comes the common sense question. If lockdowns are to be removed in June, why are they employing marshals from July onwards? Oops. Now, in March, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, was reportedly more optimistic than ever of a great British summer imminently impending. And not long after, the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, said with much fanfare that for the first time people can start to think about visiting loved ones abroad or perhaps a summer holiday. Where Britons could head to, what encumbrances on their liberty they would face upon returning, and how much restrictions such as PCR tests would add to their trip bill was unstated. It never is. However, the document stating that COVID marshals will be required to encourage compliance among members of the public until the start of next year at least appears to be the first black and white confirmation coming directly from the UK government. Now, the tender strongly implies what ministers have so far been unwilling to concede, that the global pandemic isn't anywhere near over yet, and resultant lockdowns are likely, and citizens' lives will continue to be adversely affected far beyond the foreseeable future. And an even longer period of uncertainty is even more heavily insinuated by a separate tender for a COVID public information campaign in Northern Ireland, which calls for an advertising contractor to build on and continue to deliver a multimedia advertising campaign on COVID-19. But if it's going away, why do you need it? Well, clearly it's not. But does anyone ask why we need to advertise a global pandemic that most people around the world are already aware of? It's that common sense again. Now, this was published not long after Matt Hancock's prophecy, and the contract is set to run for 2 years, from April 2021 through 2023, at a cost of £2 million. And residents of the UK should by this point be thoroughly accustomed to optimistic ministerial forecasts in respect of COVID, leading only to disappointment. You have to go back when the country first entered into the lockdown in March 2020, and Boris Johnson pledged it would last just 3 weeks. 53 or more weeks later, they're now employing marshals until next year, which means perhaps 3 weeks is heading towards 3 years. Now, that period of confinement eventually ended 4 months later. Why? Because the people complained. Same in America. And the Prime Minister unveiled plans to return the country to normal, there is no such thing, by Christmas. He just didn't say which one. And a 4-week lockdown was temporarily reimposed in November. Rules were relaxed for Yuletide and then partially reimposed before a full lockdown again was applied in January. They let you out of jail for Christmas. That's what happened. And like I warned in May of last year, they will keep rolling out lockdowns based on flawed maths by Johns Hopkins and fake waves, some of which is caused by the vaccine itself, until the people stand up and tell their governments to stick their lockdowns where the sun don't shine.